You haven't thought about them in weeks, and then a song comes on, and you are right back inside the moment you lost them. Not a memory, a reliving. The temperature of the room, the specific quality of the light, whatever you were wearing. Your body doesn't know the difference between then and now. There's a man, late 20s, holding it together from the outside. Relationship ended 8 months before this story picks up. She left, or he left. That part doesn't matter. What matters is what happened inside him afterward. He didn't go quiet. He didn't go numb. He went the other direction entirely. For months, hearing her name mentioned across a room pulled his attention like a hook through the skin. Physical, involuntary. A street they'd walked together, not a gentle ache, but his whole body going back there. A restaurant where they'd argued badly. A film she'd loved that he now couldn't watch. Each one a full-body reliving, not a memory he chose to have. He rehearsed arguments they would never actually have. Brilliant things he should have said. He drafted texts in his head at 2 in the morning and didn't send them. He told people he was over it. He told himself he was over it. Convincingly even. He was not over it. And then something shifted. The grief changed texture. He stopped missing her and started hating her. Specific, detailed, well-organized hatred. And here is the part that nobody talks about honestly. The hatred felt like energy. It felt, if he was being truthful with himself in those unguarded moments, like a kind of aliveness. Like he was finally moving, finally getting somewhere. He thought, okay, now I'm moving on. He was wrong. He was more attached to her in his hatred than he had ever been in his longing. More present to her, more organized around her. And there was this strange detail he couldn't explain. He kept forgetting the name of the man she had started seeing. Kept forgetting it, over and over, despite knowing it, despite being told it more than once. Something in him simply would not let that man become real. Which points at something uncomfortable. Because hatred has so much force in it. It should be propulsive, shouldn't it? It should be motion. You'd think all that energy would carry you away from a person, put distance between you, close the chapter. But what if it doesn't work that way? What if hating someone keeps them more alive inside you than almost anything else can? What if, and this is the question worth sitting with, what if the obsession is doing something, holding something in place, protecting something that hasn't yet been properly finished? The hatred kept her alive inside him. More alive, honestly, than the love had at the end. Which raises a question no one quite asks out loud. What is hating someone actually doing to you? And why does it feel, in those unguarded moments, less like leaving, and more like a way of staying together? It's staying. That's what was happening. The man who thought he was finally moving, the one whose hatred had that clean, propulsive feeling, like being released from something. He was not moving. He was staying, just in a different room of the same house. Let's name what was actually running beneath all of it. When a relationship ends, not gently, not by mutual agreement, but in the way real ones end, with damage and confusion and things left unresolved, a piece of you doesn't come back. That piece doesn't dissolve. It doesn't just fade out as weeks accumulate. It breaks off. It becomes something separate. Think of a complex the way you'd think of a shard of glass that lodged inside you. It didn't dissolve just because the wound closed over it. It is still there, and whenever anything presses on it from outside, you feel the full original pain, not a faded echo of it. What you're carrying after a bad breakup is one of these, a charged cluster of feeling, memory, and image that has broken off from the rest of your daily awareness and now operates on its own. It has its own logic, its own mood, its own schedule. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It fires when it wants to. This is why the song that was playing the last night you were really together still hits you in the stomach, even 4 years later, in a grocery store next to the cereal. You didn't decide to feel that. You weren't thinking about them. Something in you did it without asking. That's the complex doing what it does. The fragment activating, the wound pressing against something, and the whole original charge releasing at once. Not a memory you're accessing, but a memory that is accessing you. He had one of these. Absolutely. Everything he described, the rehearsed arguments, the drafted texts at 2 in the morning, the full body sensation when he heard her name, that was not weakness. That was not him being unable to move on. That was a complex doing what a complex does, operating below the surface, autonomous, running its own program regardless of what he told himself consciously he was or wasn't feeling. But here's the more important thing. The thing underneath the thing. What he was still attached to was not her. Everyone carries an inner template, a kind of invisible mold that decides who feels magnetic before you've had a single conversation. Your ex fit that mold, or stretched it, or shattered it. Either way, the mold is still yours, and it is still charged, even though the person who activated it is gone. What you are still attached to is not them. It is this template, this inner picture of them that your mind constructed during the relationship. That picture outlives the relationship. It lives in you. Call it a soul image, the version of them that your whole inner world built, which is often more powerful, more vivid, and more present than the actual person ever was. When he checked her social media at midnight, he was not looking for information. He was being pulled by the soul image, the internal charge seeking its object. When he rehearsed the argument in the shower, landing the devastating line he never actually said, he was not arguing with her. She was not in his shower. He was arguing with the version of her that lives inside him, and that version doesn't negotiate, doesn't sleep, doesn't leave. The real person had already moved on. She was somewhere else, living a life that did not include him. The soul image had not moved on. It was running continuously, like a process left open in the background, consuming resources, keeping the whole system warm. This is where you have to understand what the unconscious is. The unconscious is the part of you that keeps running after you think you've turned it off. Like how a city's electrical grid keeps humming through the night, even though everyone is asleep. Your ex lives there. Not as a memory you can choose to open or close, but as an active process still running in the dark. The soul image doesn't rest. The complex doesn't wait for your permission. The unconscious keeps the lights on for both of them, indefinitely, until something changes. And the hatred? The thing that felt like finally getting somewhere. Hatred is not the opposite of love. Indifference is the opposite of love. The complete withdrawal of your energy from a person, the soul image losing its charge, the unconscious letting the process finally close. Hatred is love's twin. It pours the same energy into the object that love did. It wires the person into your nervous system just as thoroughly. Every time he fantasized about her humiliation, every time he constructed the devastating argument she would never be able to answer, he was proving she was still alive inside him. The forgetting of the rival's name, that strange detail, that repeated failure to let another man become real, was not indifference. It was total capture. The unconscious refusing to allow a competitor to fully exist because the soul image still held the position, still held the charge, still held him. He was more bonded to her in his hatred than he had been in love. At the end, when things had gone flat and habitual, and they had stopped really seeing each other. So the question that opens now is this: what is the soul image actually made of? Not the person, the picture, because that picture is built from something specific, charged with particular features, organized around particular qualities. And the things about her that infuriated him most, the very specific, almost embarrassingly personal nature of that rage. Why does it feel, when you really press on it, less like it belongs to her, and more like it belongs to him? The specific qualities that enrage you most, not the general complaint, but the particular, almost embarrassingly personal charge of it. That is your first clue. There's a difference in voltage between a genuine grievance and something else. A genuine grievance feels like an external problem you need to solve. This other thing feels like something is burning inside you, like the accusation is coming from somewhere underneath the floor. The man who cannot get over his ex's selfishness, the way she took and never gave back. When he really sits with the specificity of that rage, really traces it, there's a question he keeps not asking. Where in his own life has he taken without giving? The woman who cannot forgive her ex for shutting down emotionally, for going cold and unreachable whenever things got difficult. Where in her own history has she gone absent? Where has she not shown up for someone who needed her? This is what the shadow is. The shadow is the locked room in the house of your personality. Not a room full of monsters, but a room full of qualities you decided you couldn't afford to own. The selfishness you needed to deny, the rage that seemed too ugly, the neediness you buried under competence. You locked it early and then forgot it was there. But it didn't go away. It found a different exit. It got projected outward, pinned onto the faces of the people closest to you, which is why the people who enrage us most are always the ones we know best. And projection is the experience of watching a film on someone else's screen while forgetting you brought the projector. You look at your ex and see everything that is wrong with them, their coldness, their selfishness, their chaos. What you cannot see yet is that the image has your fingerprints on it. The charge came from inside you. You are, in part, watching yourself. This is not an accusation. It is a mechanism. It is the way the system works. The qualities that exist in you but cannot be admitted, cannot be integrated, cannot even be looked at directly. They do not disappear. They find a host. And a person in an intimate relationship is the most available host there is, which is why the breakup stings in ways that feel disproportionate, ways that seem to go beyond the actual person. Because you are not only losing them, you are losing the container where all of that disowned material had been living. But there is something even more literal happening underneath the projection. During the years of a real relationship, one that actually mattered, one where you were genuinely present, your life force, the energy that powers your creativity and your sense of being alive and your emotional vitality, poured itself into the inner image of that person, not as metaphor, as function. A portion of what makes you feel like yourself became attached to that image, became organized around it. And when the relationship ended, that portion did not automatically return. It stayed out there, lodged in the image, the way a tool left outside can stay outside indefinitely if no one goes back for it. This is why certain breakups don't just leave you sad. They leave you dimmed, less able to create, less interested in things that used to interest you, flatter, as though something was subtracted even when you were the one who initiated the ending. A piece of you went with the inner image, and it has not come home. That image, carrying your life force, carrying all that charge, it does not behave like an inert memory. It behaves like a presence. The person is gone, the image remains, and it haunts the way presences haunt. The dreams where they appear more vivid than waking life, more real somehow than real people you saw that day. The replaying of conversations that will never happen. The way certain hours, late nights, early Sunday mornings, become unbearable in a specific way that ordinary loneliness doesn't quite explain. Every culture has documented this. The dead, the gone, the lost, they don't simply stop existing inside the one who loved them. The bond continues as an active force, because the image is still running, still carrying what you left in it, still pressing on you from the inside. And now the hatred. The clean, propulsive, energizing hatred that feels like finally moving. Withdrawing a projection means seeing the shadow. It means looking at the rage about their coldness and asking, where am I cold? It means sitting with the humiliation of recognizing your own face in the accusation. That is genuinely painful. It is destabilizing. It requires a kind of honesty that does not come naturally and does not feel good. Hatred is so much easier. Hatred keeps the image outside. Hatred keeps you righteous, keeps the problem located over there, in them, in what they did, in who they are. It keeps the container intact, the container where all the disowned material lives, organized neatly under their name, their face, their behavior. As long as you can call them the villain, you don't have to look at the shadow. As long as the image remains a villain, it remains a container. And as long as it remains a container, it remains alive. The hatred is not evidence you have moved on. It is evidence that the bond is precisely as intact as it ever was. Here is the central paradox. Your ex stays alive inside you exactly as long as you use the inner image of them as the place where your disowned self lives. The more intensely you hate them, the more completely they belong to you, because you are refusing to take back what was always yours. You cannot release the image while you still need it to hold something you won't hold yourself. The only way to truly let them go, and this is the part that lands like a cold floor under your feet, is to stop using them. Not because they didn't do harm, not because the anger isn't real, but because as long as they carry your shadow, they are too necessary to release. You cannot throw away a container you are still storing things in, which raises the question of how any of this actually changes. If the image is carrying your life force, and the shadow is pinned to their face, and the bond is held in place by the very hatred you thought was setting you free, what do you do? What does the work of actually taking it back look like? The work begins in a place that will feel completely wrong, which is why most people skip it entirely. Take the quality that enrages you most, not the general complaint, not "she was selfish" or "he was emotionally unavailable." The specific, particular, almost embarrassingly charged version of it. The precise texture of the rage when it comes up. That specificity is important because a genuine grievance has a different voltage than what we are talking about here. A genuine grievance feels like an external problem. This feels like it is coming through the floor. Now ask where that quality lives in you, not as punishment, not as a way of letting them off the hook, but as a genuine inquiry. The man who cannot stop rehearsing her selfishness, where in his own life does he take without giving, quietly, in ways he has not examined? The woman who cannot forgive his emotional absence, where in her own history has she gone cold? Where has she not shown up for someone standing right in front of her, needing her? The shadow contains exactly what you are most certain belongs to the other person. That is how you know it is yours. The charge is the tell. The intensity of the accusation is proportional to how thoroughly you have refused to look at it in yourself. This is the first movement, and the second cannot begin until it has been done honestly. Not as a confession, not as self-flagellation, as a retrieval. You are taking back the piece of yourself that you have been paying them to carry. The second movement requires that you be alone. No phone, no sound. You are going to sit with the inner image of them, not to love it, not to hate it, not to replay the case for the prosecution. Just let it be present in front of you, the way you might sit across a table from someone you have not yet decided what to do with. Active imagination is not daydreaming. It is not scrolling your memories looking for proof. It is the deliberate act of sitting with an inner image, in this case, the inner image of your ex, and instead of running from it or chasing it, actually meeting it. You ask it something, you let it answer, you stay in the conversation long enough to find out what it actually wants from you. Most people never do this. They let the image chase them. This is how you turn it around. So you sit with it and you ask, what part of my own life did I pour into you? What quality of mine did you carry? What did I love in you and then despise in you that was always mine to develop and never yours to own? It might be permission to feel things openly, without apology. It might be creative abandon you found irresponsible in them, even as you craved it. Sexual aliveness, ambition too large to claim as your own, so you admired it in them and then resented it when they turned it elsewhere. Whatever that quality is, name it. Say it out loud, because that quality does not belong to them. It never did. It belongs to your own becoming, and you left it out there in the image of them, and now you need to bring it home. The third movement is the one your rational mind will resist most, because it will feel theatrical. It will feel like too much, but here is why it is necessary. The ego, the part of you that manages your calendar, maintains your dignity, and tells people you're doing fine, is not the whole of who you are. Below it, another part of you is still keeping the relationship alive in the dark, still waiting for a resolution that never came. That part doesn't respond to your decision to move on. It responds to something older: ceremony, enacted gesture, the language of symbol and action. So you write the letter, the full one, not the sanitized version. Everything you never said, the grief and the rage and the specific loss of what you thought you were building. And then you burn it. Or you go to the place that was yours together, and you stand in it consciously, and you leave it consciously. Or you return the object, or bury it, or give it away. You choose a date, and you hold it. These acts are not sentimental theater. They are communications addressed to the part of you below the ego that is still waiting for the ending to arrive. That part cannot read a resolution you made in your head. It can read action. The ceremony tells it, not someday, now. The union is over, not because you have stopped caring, but because you have chosen to care with your own eyes. That is the actual goal. Not to stop feeling, not to undo what happened, to find out what was always yours, that you had mistaken for belonging to them, and to walk back into your life carrying it, instead of standing at a distance, watching them carry it away. That quality you named, the one you located in yourself, the one you are taking back from them, that is the thread everything else in this hour has been pulling toward. 3 things to carry out the door. First, what you are still attached to is not them. It is an inner picture, one your whole inner world built, loaded it with meaning, and then fell in love with or went to war with. The person has been gone for months or years. The picture is still running in the background, still drawing on your life force, still organizing your moods without your permission. Inner pictures can be worked with. That is not a small thing. That is the difference between being haunted and doing something about it. Second, the hatred is not proof you have moved on. It is proof the bond is still live. As long as the inner image is carrying your shadow, as long as it is holding qualities you have refused to own, it is too necessary to let go of. The charge is the information. It is pointing at something you still need to retrieve. Third, release is not forgetting. It is a sequence. Take back what you put on them. Reclaim the unlived qualities you left in their keeping. And then do something. Something physical. Something your rational mind will call unnecessary. To tell the part of you that is older than thought, it is finished. That part does not understand decisions. It understands gesture. There is a reason that soldiers throughout history, at the end of a long campaign, did not simply turn around and walk home. They performed something first. They crossed a threshold deliberately. They named what had been lost. They set something down, not because feelings can be commanded to stop, but because something in a human being holds a bond below the level of language, below the level of logic, in a place that only responds to an acted form. They put it down with their whole body and walked away from it with their whole body. And that layer, the old one, the one that had been standing watch, the one that had not yet been told it was over, finally understood. The war is finished. You are allowed to come home.